What was it like growing up as a trans person? It was, it was horrible. I didn't really know what was going on with me. I thought I was mad. I thought I was broken. I've heard other people say that, just being trans is traumatising. Hiding such a big thing that you're not sure even what it is or whether it's okay, being told that it's not okay. I'll say to people they didn't call us trans when I was young, and people say, what did they call you? And I say perverts. It was like the community I was in had no tolerance for gay or trans people. I would experience, at best, discrimination, at worst, violence most days, every day. It was a hard time. It's a hard time for everyone growing up, isn't it? But it was a hard time for me, yeah. When I was 19, I crashed a motorbike hard into a car and went over the top, and I snapped this bone off as I went over the windscreen. I caught it on the windscreen, and then when I landed, I pushed that shoulder back so far that it pulled the nerves out of my spine, which has left me with completely paralysed left arm and the upper part of my chest. So I've lived with that for 30 odd years. I view it predominantly as a secondary disability to my transness, because when I was a young, frightened and confused person trying to work out who I was, I didn't want to be queer. I wanted to be like everybody else. So I overcompensated, and and I don't think it's an unusual story. I read quite a few people's journeys, and, people do uber male things to prove they're male, and they lead reckless and dangerous lives of, I did it all, like drugs, motorbikes, fighting, I did the whole thing. I was, my male role models weren't overly good, I guess. So I guess, I adopted quite a lot of toxic behaviour. Coming out as a trans person alleviated a lot of that. Suddenly I don't need to pretend to be anybody else. Up until that point, I was always told my community was invalid and ridiculous, so I didn't access my community. But once I started accessing and being around other queer trans people, then I realised that they are some of the most amazing people that I've ever met, and the strongest people. Why wouldn't they be strong, right? And, just a beautiful community of people that supported me and enabled me to be myself. Lismore is an amazing place to live as a queer person, and coming here, I've just been accepted and welcomed, and it's a beautiful town. When the first flood happened, I'd probably been living in this house for about 6 months, 7 months. We was expecting a regular Lismore flood of about 11 metres. But what came was substantially bigger. I could hear choppers and, you could just hear a disaster. It was raining hard, very hard. I've never seen rain like that. The creek had swollen and gone over the highway, so we waded out there with people who was fleeing in their cars. I noticed quite a lot of people were bleeding through the legs, and I think that's where they'd come out through windows and stuff. This was all in conditions like you wouldn't believe. I was there probably for about an hour and a half, helping people to what had turned into an impromptu first aid centre in someone's carpool. And then a guy just turned up and launched a boat. He was on his own. He said, will someone come with me? I said, yeah. I was a bit worried because of my disability. I can't swim, so there was one life jacket. I grabbed the life jacket pretty quick and put the life jacket on. And I got in his boat and we went into town. And we'd heard that people were trapped in their roofs, so we spent a lot of time shouting at roofs, pulling up to doorways, you know, of flooded houses and shouting in, and we just got people as we could find them, put them in the boat, took them to shore. We came back here, we went past our street, and, you know, I didn't know then that people had drowned in the street. God, you know, a lady had drowned next door.
Many people were involved in flood rescues, which is fantastic. Every one of them are heroes. Dee is someone who's taken it a step further, though.
I met John on the morning of the flood, and John was house-sitting a house over the back here, next block.
I was basically out the front here on the veranda, looking out this way, hoping to see a boat come by, because as it's going on, the water's rising.
When we was cruising around in the boat looking for people, I'd seen John waving out the door. Hello?
One of the people in the boat called out to me. They said, we'll meet you around the back of the house. I was able to make my way past floating furniture between here and the back and eventually get into the boat, which was a great relief. It was a really long boat ride in floodwater, and it was still teeming with rain. Dee was on the front of the boat giving directions, looking out for anything underwater, such as road signs or whatever that was there.
Now I can smell fuel around this server. Let's get away from here. That'll be on the surface as well.
And just that communication was really reassuring between the driver of the boat and Dee at the prow.
We took him to shore where we said goodbye, and I've not met John since, so I'm very excited to see John today. Hey, John.
How are you?
Yeah, how are you? You're a very familiar face.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Have you been here since the flood?
3 days after it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then today.
How have you been?
Better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm suddenly engaging with society again for the first time in 6 months.
Good news. Yeah. Good news. Yeah. I didn't see this far in the house on the day, but it looks a lot better.
That was the door that I couldn't open because it was underwater and it kept slipping.
I don't think I could see this handrail.
Yeah.
It's mad. It really brings it home to you how deep the water was, knowing that the boat came over this, wasn't it?
Here, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember looking up at the boat and I couldn't get up into it and then had to back off.
And then you said something like, it's okay, I can step onto this handrail.
Yeah.
And then we got you in the boat. It feels unreal that that was actually the situation we was in. You know, I've got these images in my head of what happened, but it just seems so unreal. You know, yeah, that's how I met John. We pulled him out of his house.
I'm proud to have been rescued by Dee. Wow. Yeah.
You know, I think we rescued about 15 people, 5 dogs and a chicken called Roadrunner. That was the day of the flood. A lot of people have been forced to leave, but the community of Lismore is very strong, and I have not experienced a community reaction like that. It was amazing. The people that housed us after the flood and helped us and bought us food and water and looked out for us, it was the community. Obviously, you know, we was up against it. You know, it was hard to clean up. It got to the point we started basically getting all of our belongings from our lives and throwing them on a heap outside, and that's what the whole town did. And then we needed to pressure wash and gurney, but you couldn't get a pressure washer, so some friends of mine bought one in Sydney and drove it to us, and when they left, they said, hey, keep the gurney, but use it to help other people.
Hey, hi, Dave.
How you going? You all right?
Yeah, good to see you.
Someone would have told me about Brian, and so I went there, and Brian lives in a cottage that had gone completely underwater.
Oh, the water was up to the gutters. Inside, any bit of plaster was all falling down. The kitchen was buggered, just fell to bits. To see your house just covered in mud. There's something goes in your head, I don't know what it is, that you've nearly lost everything.
I gurneyed his house inside and out. We gurneyed his garden, the front of his house, and just straightened his house out as best we could. It's a lot better, right?
Isn't it?
A lot better.
He came in and helped me in the big time. Some people just rise above, come and help, because her house was buggered too, and there she is helping me.
It sort of went from there. I don't know how many houses I gurneyed, but then that turned into other support. People were living in shells of houses, in sheds, cars, tents. And we hit, I think it was one of the coldest winters for however long they said. It was cold. So I put a GoFundMe up asking for support, and we raised quite a lot of money. We started trying to create 2 heatable spaces in as many houses as we could.
It's been very cosy to have all the walls done.
It was a bad situation, eh?
It was.
When I met Jeanette, she was living in a shed in her garden because her house had been smashed. She's living in a single-skinned tin shed on a concrete slab, and she was spending all day, every day in bed, under the covers, trying to stay warm. She had a heater that was tripping out.
We don't actually live in the flood zone, so we didn't think we were going to flood, so we were a bit unprepared.
It was pretty frightening.
I was really worried about somebody that mature living in such a messed up situation.
Dee came around and said, oh, we can line your shed for you. I've got a whole lot of volunteer people to come and do it. So she sort of worked around me, and
because you were like living there while they were doing the walls, hey?
yeah.
We arranged to make her shed heatable. We lined Jeanette's shed with gyprock boarding, we lined the ceiling, and we made it to the point where I felt she might survive. To see somebody that mature survive something so harsh and do it so positively was beautiful.
And that wouldn't have happened without Dee.
Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Dee. And not just me, I know for sure there's so many people in Lismore that she was helping.
We lined 2 rooms in about 14 or 15 houses and 2 complete houses, which is quite a large undertaking for volunteers. My phone was starting at 4:30 in the morning, and it became an unusable device because it just went off. And I would turn up, I site visit the houses. We never turned anyone down, but I triaged it as best I could. And people would say, how do I get on your list? I said, there isn't a list. You know, how about we just turn up next week and start fixing your house? And that's what we did. At one point, we was working on 3 houses at once. You know, I guess we had about 20 volunteers. And we went 7 days a week, supporting people as best we could for about 6 or 7 months. I started saying that what we're doing has got nothing to do with, building work. This is about having people's back and supporting them. I'm now a peer support worker in Lismore. We encourage people to tell us their flood stories. And there are some horrible stories, some really horrible stories, and I believe every single one of them. I get paid to be myself. You know, I'm paid to support people in the flood zone. It's, you know, it's okay, it's good. I go into town now, people say hi, you know, and I'm a part of this community, which is why I'm still here living here. If I walk away from the Lismore community, I've got nothing left. So.